The email arrived at exactly 7:42 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. I was still in my pajamas, sitting at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee that had just started to cool. My laptop screen glowed in the early morning light as I clicked on the new message from HR subject line, "Termination effective immediately." For a moment, my brain couldn't process the words. I read them again. Then again. Dear Lauren Price, this letter is to inform you that your employment with DataCore Systems has been terminated effective immediately. Your position has been eliminated as part of a company restructuring. Your final paycheck and benefits information will be sent separately. We wish you the best in your future endeavors. That was it. 5 years of my life reduced to 4 short paragraphs. No phone call. No meeting. No explanation beyond restructuring. My hands started trembling, and the coffee cup rattled against the saucer as I set it down. I had given everything to DataCore. Late nights fixing code that nobody else could fix. Weekends spent preventing system crashes. Holidays missed because some emergency always needed my attention. And this was how they repaid me? With a cold, automated email at 7:42 in the morning? I sat frozen, staring at the screen, feeling like someone had just punched me in the stomach. My first thought was that this had to be a mistake. There had to be some explanation. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands and dialed the HR department. The phone rang 4 times before someone picked up. DataCore HR, this is Vanessa speaking. Her voice was professional, detached. Vanessa, this is Lauren Price. I just received an email saying I've been terminated. There must be some mistake. Can you please connect me with someone who can explain what's happening? There was a pause. I could hear typing in the background. Miss Price, yes. Your termination is correct. Your position was eliminated as part of our restructuring initiative. There's no mistake. My throat tightened. But nobody told me this was coming. I just finished a major project last week. My performance reviews have all been excellent. This doesn't make sense. More typing. I'm sorry, but the decision has been made at the management level. Your access to company systems has been revoked, and your final documentation will be mailed to you. Can I at least speak to my manager? To Derek. Mr. Peterson is unavailable at this time. Is there anything else I can help you with? The coldness in her voice made it clear there wasn't. No, I said quietly. The line went dead. I sat holding my phone, feeling completely hollow inside. I spent the rest of that day in a daze, moving through my apartment like a ghost. My phone buzzed with a text from my coworker, Hannah. Lauren, I just heard. I'm so sorry. They told us this morning in a team meeting. They said your position was eliminated due to budget cuts. I stared at the message, my chest burning. Budget cuts? DataCore had just reported record profits last quarter. I texted back. Did they say anything else? Her response came quickly. They said they'd already found someone to take over your responsibilities. I think they'd been planning this for weeks. I'm really sorry, Lauren. You deserved better than this. They had been planning this. For weeks. While I had been working 60-hour weeks, thinking I was valued and secure, they had already decided to throw me away. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw my phone across the room. Instead, I just sat on my couch and let the tears come. 5 years. Gone in an instant. No warning, no appreciation, no respect. Just an email and a phone call that lasted less than 3 minutes. Later that night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, a thought whispered through my mind. The company let me go without notice, I said to the darkness. But one day, they're going to pay 10 times more to license my software. I didn't know how true those words would become. My name is Lauren Price, and before that terrible Tuesday, I had believed in loyalty. I was 32 years old and had spent 5 years at DataCore Systems as a senior software developer. I wasn't the loudest person in the room or the most political. I was the one who got things done. When DataCore's entire payment processing system crashed on Black Friday 3 years ago, I was the one who fixed it. I worked for 18 hours straight, surviving on coffee and adrenaline, until every transaction was flowing smoothly again. Company made $3 million that day because I refused to let their system fail. When a major security vulnerability threatened to expose customer data 2 years ago, I was the one who patched it. I coded through the night while everyone else panicked, and by morning the threat was neutralized. No data was lost. No customers were affected. The executives took credit, of course. But I didn't mind. I thought hard work spoke for itself. I thought loyalty mattered. I thought that if I kept being excellent, kept solving impossible problems, kept showing up when it mattered most, I would be valued. I was wrong. Companies don't value loyalty. They value profit. And the moment they decided I cost too much or wasn't needed anymore, I became disposable. Didn't matter that I had saved them millions. Didn't matter that I knew their systems better than anyone. None of it mattered. What DataCore didn't know, what nobody knew, was the secret I had been keeping for 3 years. The software system they relied on most, the one that processed all their client transactions and generated 70% of their revenue, wasn't really theirs. It was mine. Let me explain. 3 years ago, DataCore's legacy transaction system was falling apart. It was old, buggy, and constantly breaking down. Company hired expensive consultants who promised solutions but delivered nothing. Clients were complaining. Money was being lost. Something had to change. One night, frustrated by the endless failures, I started coding my own solution. Not at the office, but at home on my personal laptop. I worked late into the night, experimenting with new approaches, building something better from the ground up. Took me 4 months of nights and weekends, but I created it. Clean, efficient, scalable transaction processing system that could handle 10 times the load of the old system. Called it StreamCore. I showed it to Derek, my manager, as a possible solution. He loved it. Within 2 weeks, DataCore had adopted my software. They rolled it out across all their platforms and it worked perfectly. Clients were happy. Revenue increased. Everyone celebrated. But here's what. They didn't know. I had built StreamCore entirely on my own time using my own equipment under my own intellectual property. I had registered it under my personal software license. Legally, it was mine. They never asked. I never told them. I didn't think it would matter. Now, sitting in my apartment, unemployed and betrayed, I realized it mattered very much. The first week after being fired was the hardest. I tried calling Derek, my former manager, multiple times. Every call went straight to voicemail. I sent him emails asking for an explanation, for some closure. He never responded. It was like I had never existed. I felt erased. Friends tried to help. They sent me job listings, offered to connect me with their contacts, told me everything would be okay. But I couldn't focus. I felt paralyzed by humiliation. How could I explain to potential employers that I had been fired without warning? How could I spin being discarded like garbage into something positive on a resume? My savings account, which had never been impressive, started draining fast. Rent, groceries, utilities, student loan payments. The bills didn't stop just because my income had. I applied for unemployment, but it wouldn't kick in for weeks. I ate ramen noodles and stopped going out with friends because I couldn't afford it. At night, I would lie awake replaying every moment at DataCore, searching for signs I had missed. Had I said something wrong? Done something wrong? Was there a moment when I could have saved myself? But the truth was simpler and crueler. They just didn't value me. I was a tool they used until they decided they didn't need me anymore. And that realization hurt more than anything. One morning, about 2 weeks after being fired, I was sitting at my laptop scrolling through job postings when something caught my eye. I had left my email client open and a notification appeared. StreamCore license agreement, annual renewal required. My heart stopped. StreamCore. The software I had built. The software DataCore was using. I had completely forgotten about the automatic license renewal. When I had originally allowed DataCore to use StreamCore, I had set up a simple license agreement. It was free for the first year as a trial period, and then required annual renewal. That first year had ended 2 years ago, but I had just kept renewing it automatically without thinking much about it. For all I worked there, seemed like the right thing to do. But I didn't work there anymore. I pulled up the original license agreement and read through it carefully. Everything was crystal clear. I owned StreamCore. I had built it independently. DataCore had permission to use it only through a licensing agreement that I could revoke or modify at any time. A strange feeling washed over me. Not quite revenge, not quite satisfaction. Something sharper. They thought firing me meant they owned everything I had created. They were wrong. StreamCore was mine. And they were about to learn exactly what that meant. I spent the next 3 days researching. I needed to understand exactly what my rights were and what DataCore's vulnerabilities might be. I contacted a lawyer who specialized in intellectual property and software licensing. His name was Vincent Torres, and he came highly recommended. I explained my situation in his office, showing him all the documentation. My original code, my personal license registration, the agreement I had made with DataCore, everything. Vincent reviewed the documents carefully, his expression growing more interested with each page. "This is airtight," he finally said. "You own the software completely. The license agreement you gave DataCore is clear and legal. They have no claim to ownership whatsoever." "What are my options?" I asked. He leaned back in his chair. "You could revoke their license entirely. That would force them to stop using your software immediately. But that might not be in your best interest financially. What would you suggest?" "Renegotiate. They're dependent on your software now. That gives you leverage. You could charge them fair market rates for continued use. Given how critical this software is to their operations, they'll pay." He named a figure that made my eyes widen. It was more than I had made in an entire year as their employee. "Is that really reasonable?" I asked. Vincent smiled. "Lauren, your software is generating millions for them. That figure is more than reasonable. It's actually conservative. You could probably charge more." I walked out of his office feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks. Power. While I was researching my legal options, I needed to survive financially. I started taking freelance programming jobs. Small contracts, nothing glamorous. Building websites for local businesses, fixing database issues for startups, writing custom scripts for small companies. Pay wasn't great, but it was something. What surprised me was how much people appreciated my work. Clients would thank me profusely, leave glowing reviews, and recommend me to others. One small business owner told me, "You actually listen to what we need and deliver exactly that. Most developers just do whatever is easiest for them." I realized something important. DataCore, I had been just another employee, easily replaceable in their eyes. But out here, working independently, people valued my skills. They saw my worth. Slowly, I started building a reputation. Word spread through local business networks. "Lauren Price is the developer you want. She's reliable, talented, and fair." My phone started ringing more often. My calendar started filling up. I wasn't making what I had made at DataCore yet, but I was surviving. More importantly, I was remembering who I was. Not just a cog in some corporate machine. Not just a name on an org chart. I was a skilled professional with something valuable to offer. And that confidence, that sense of self-worth, was growing stronger every day. 2 months after being fired, I got a phone call that changed everything. "Is this Lauren Price?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes, this is Lauren. My name is Patricia Williams. I'm the CTO of Horizon Financial." We used to be a client of DataCore Systems. My heart skipped. Horizon was one of DataCore's biggest clients, worth millions in annual revenue. I remember Horizon, I said carefully. Good. 'Cause we remember you. You were the one who fixed our transaction processing issues last year when DataCore's system kept crashing. You worked directly with our team and you were brilliant. I felt a flush of pride. Thank you. That means a lot. Lauren, we've been having problems with DataCore again. Their system keeps having outages. When we ask for support, they're slow and ineffective. We're looking for alternatives. She paused. We heard you're doing independent consulting now. Would you be interested in working with us directly? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Absolutely. I would love to help Horizon. Excellent. Let's set up a meeting to discuss what we need. And Lauren? We're prepared to pay well for quality work. We trust you, not DataCore. After hanging up, I sat in stunned silence. Then I smiled. Horizon Financial was cutting ties with DataCore, and they were coming to me instead. My first real independent victory had just landed in my lap. Contract with Horizon Financial was everything I needed. They hired me to build a custom transaction processing system specifically for their needs. Pay was generous, far more than I had been making at DataCore on a per-project basis. But more than the money, it was the validation. They wanted me. Not DataCore. Me. I threw myself into the work with renewed energy. Late nights didn't feel like a burden anymore. They felt like building something of my own. I was creating solutions that I owned, that I controlled, that bore my name. Within 6 weeks, I delivered a system that exceeded Horizon's expectations. Patricia called me personally to tell me how thrilled they were. Lauren, this is exactly what we needed. You've saved us hundreds of thousands in potential downtime. We'll be recommending you to everyone we know. And they did. Within a month, 2 more of DataCore's former clients reached out to me. They had all heard about my work with Horizon. They all had similar complaints about DataCore's declining quality. They all wanted to hire me instead. I realized I needed to formalize this. I couldn't just keep freelancing indefinitely. I needed structure, legitimacy, and protection. I filed paperwork to create my own LLC, Price Solutions. It felt terrifying and exhilarating to see my name on official business documents. I wasn't just a developer anymore. I was a business owner. The foundation was building piece by piece. 6 months after being fired from DataCore, I landed my first major software licensing deal. A mid-sized technology firm called Vertex Systems needed a robust transaction processing solution. They had been researching options and found StreamCore. Well, they found references to it because DataCore had been bragging about their innovative system in industry publications. But when Vertex's technical team started digging deeper, they discovered the truth. StreamCore wasn't DataCore's software. It was mine. The CEO of Vertex, a sharp woman named Brenda Cole, called me directly. Ms. Price, we're very interested in licensing StreamCore for our operations. We understand you're the actual owner and developer of the system. Is it available for licensing? My hands trembled as I held the phone. This was it. The moment everything changed. Yes, I said, keeping my voice steady. StreamCore is available for licensing. I'd be happy to discuss terms. We negotiated for 2 weeks. Brenda was tough but fair. She knew the value of what I had created, and she was willing to pay appropriately for it. The final contract was for 3 years of licensing with annual payments that totaled more than I had made in my entire 5 years at DataCore. When I signed the agreement, I sat in my home office and cried. Not from sadness, but from overwhelming relief and vindication. I had built something valuable. I had owned it legally. And now I was finally being compensated fairly for it. For the first time since being fired, I felt truly powerful. As my business grew, I started hearing whispers about DataCore. Tech industry is smaller than people think, and word travels fast. I heard from former colleagues who had stayed in touch. I read industry news. I paid attention to rumors. And what I heard made me smile. DataCore was struggling. Their systems were experiencing frequent outages. Client complaints were increasing. Several major clients had left, though DataCore hadn't announced it publicly. The company's stock price had dropped 12% over 6 months. When I dug deeper, I understood why. Dreamcore, the system I had built, was the backbone of DataCore's entire operation. But software needs maintenance. It needs updates. It needs someone who understands how it works. I had been that person. And I was gone. The developers they had left didn't truly understand Streamcore's architecture. They could do basic maintenance, but they couldn't fix complex problems or optimize performance. The system was degrading slowly, like a car running without proper maintenance. One evening, I stumbled across an industry forum where DataCore clients were complaining. System crashes twice a week now. Response times have doubled. We're looking at alternative providers. I should have felt bad for them. But I didn't. They had thrown me away without a second thought. Now they were learning what they had actually lost. And the lesson was expensive. 9 months after being fired, I attended the National Technology Conference in Denver. It was a major industry event where companies showed off their innovations and professionals networked. I went as the CEO of Price Solutions, not as someone's employee. I had a vendor booth showcasing Streamcore and my consulting services. Walking through that conference center felt surreal. Just a year ago, I had attended this same conference as a DataCore employee, invisible and overlooked. Now I was here representing my own company. And people were noticing. I was standing at my booth talking to a potential client when I saw him. Derek Peterson, my former manager. The man who had never returned my calls or emails after I was fired. He was walking through the vendor area with several other DataCore executives, all of them wearing company badges and fake smiles. Our eyes met across the room. For a moment, Derek looked confused, like he was seeing a ghost. Then recognition hit, and his face went pale. He quickly looked away and kept walking. But I had seen something in his eyes. Panic. His phone buzzed in his hand, and he glanced at it with a frown. Then he said something to the executives with him, and they all hurried away. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. Whatever problems DataCore was facing, they were getting worse. And Derek knew it. Over the next 6 months, Price Solutions grew beyond my wildest expectations. I hired 3 junior developers to help with the workload. I rented a small office space instead of working from my apartment. I brought on an accountant and a lawyer to handle the business side while I focused on the technical work. My client list expanded from 5 companies to 15. Each one trusted me because I delivered results. I didn't overpromise. I didn't steal credit. I just did excellent work and treated people with respect. The revenue numbers were staggering compared to what I had made at DataCore. I was finally being compensated fairly for my skills and my innovations. I wasn't wealthy, but I was comfortable, secure, and growing. More importantly, I was happy. I was building something meaningful, something I controlled, something that reflected my values. Every morning, I woke up excited to work instead of dreading it. My team respected me. My clients trusted me. And I answered to nobody but myself. This was what success felt like. Not climbing someone else's ladder. Building my own. One evening, my accountant called with news. Lauren, based on current projections, Price Solutions will hit $1 million in annual revenue by next quarter. Congratulations. I hung up and sat in my office, letting that sink in. $1 million. Less than 2 years after being fired. I had done it. While my company thrived, DataCore continued to crumble. The signs were everywhere if you knew where to look. Industry publications ran articles with carefully worded headlines. Data core systems faces technical challenges as clients raise concerns. Stock analysts question data core's infrastructure reliability. Major client exodus continues at data core systems. I read every article with quiet satisfaction. The details were damning. Their flagship transaction processing system, StreamCore, was failing more frequently. Clients reported data processing delays, system crashes, and poor customer support. Several major clients had publicly announced they were switching to competitors. DataCore's stock price had dropped 23% from its peak a year ago. Investors were getting nervous. The board was demanding answers. And the executives had no good ones to give. Because the truth was simple. They had fired the one person who truly understood their most critical system. They had thrown away their most valuable asset without realizing what it was worth. And now they were paying the price. I showed one of the articles to Vincent, my lawyer, during one of our regular check-ins. He read it and laughed. "Lauren, they're dying without you. It's only a matter of time before they come crawling back." "You think they'll actually reach out to me?" I asked. He nodded confidently. "They have to. Pride is expensive, but losing everything is more expensive. They'll call. Trust me." I went home that night wondering if he was right. Would DataCore actually swallow their pride and contact me? And if they did, what would I say? Call came on a Thursday morning, 18 months after they had fired me. I was in my office reviewing code when my phone buzzed with an email notification. The sender name made my heart stop. Data Core Systems, Procurement Department. Subject line, Software Licensing Inquiry. My hand shook slightly as I opened it. "Dear Ms. Price, we are reaching out regarding StreamCore transaction processing software, which we understand you have developed and currently license. Data Core Systems is interested in discussing potential licensing arrangements for continued use of this software in our operations. Would you be available for a meeting to discuss terms? We are prepared to negotiate fair and competitive rates for a long-term licensing agreement. Please let us know your availability at your earliest convenience. Best regards, Kenneth Marsh, Director of Procurement, Data Core Systems." I read the email 3 times, barely breathing. They wanted to license my software. The same software I had built while working for them. The same software they thought they owned when they fired me. They had finally realized the truth. StreamCore was mine. And without it, their company was falling apart. I forwarded the email to Vincent immediately. He called me back within minutes. "This is it, Lauren. This is exactly what we've been waiting for. How do you want to play this?" "I want them to pay," I said firmly. "Not just fairly. I want them to pay for what they did to me. Then let's make them an offer they can't refuse. But one that will hurt." 2 weeks later, I walked into DataCore's headquarters for the first time since being fired. But this time, everything was different. I wasn't an employee. I was the CEO of Price Solutions, there for a business meeting as equals. Actually, not as equals. I had the leverage. I dressed in my best suit, carried a leather briefcase with my laptop and contracts, and walked through those familiar doors with my head held high. The receptionist who checked me and didn't recognize me. Why would she? I had been nobody when I worked here. I was escorted to a large conference room where 5 DataCore executives waited. Kenneth Marsh from Procurement. Derek Peterson, my former manager. 2 people from their legal department. And surprisingly, the CFO, Harold Nguyen. They all stood when I entered, shaking my hand with forced smiles and professional pleasantness. Derek couldn't quite meet my eyes. "Ms. Price, thank you for coming," Kenneth said. "Please have a seat." I sat down at the head of the table, placing my briefcase deliberately in front of me. Power dynamic was clear. They needed me. "Let's get right to business," Kenneth continued. "We're prepared to discuss licensing terms for StreamCore. We understand you're the owner and developer. We'd like to negotiate a fair long-term agreement. I opened my briefcase and pulled out a folder. I've prepared a contract for your review. I slid it across the table. Kenneth opened it, and I watched his face change as he read. His eyes widened. His jaw tightened. He looked up at me with barely concealed shock. "This can't be right," Kenneth said, his voice strained. He turned the contract so the others could see. "You're asking for 10 times your former annual salary. Per year. For 5 years. "That's correct," I said calmly. Derek finally looked at me, his face flushed. "Lauren, come on. This is excessive. We gave you your start." You gave me nothing," I interrupted, my voice sharp but controlled. "I built StreamCore on my own time with my own equipment under my own license. You adopted it without ever asking about ownership. You benefited from my work for 3 years while paying me a standard developer salary. And then you fired me without warning or explanation." The legal team members exchanged nervous glances. I continued. "StreamCore generates approximately 70% of your transaction revenue. Your clients are leaving because the system is failing without proper maintenance and updates. Your stock price has dropped over 20%. You're losing millions." I leaned forward. "My licensing fee is a bargain compared to what you'll lose if you don't accept it." Harold, the CFO, spoke up. "Ms. Price, surely we can find a middle ground here. What you're asking is simply not feasible for our budget." "Then you'll need to make it feasible," I said. "Because those are my terms. Take it or leave it." The room went silent. Derek looked furious, his face turning red. "This is extortion," he burst out. I met his eyes coldly. "No, Derek. This is business. You should have thought about that before you threw me away." Kenneth called for a brief recess so the data core team could discuss privately. I waited in a smaller conference room, my heart pounding despite my calm exterior. Vincent had coached me on this moment. "They'll try to negotiate down," he had said. "Stand firm. They have no leverage. They need you more than you need them." 20 minutes later, I was called back to the conference room. The executives looked grim but defeated. Harold spoke first. "Ms. Price, we've discussed your proposal. While we find the terms challenging, we understand the critical nature of StreamCore to our operations." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "However, we'd like to propose a modification. We'll agree to your annual licensing fee, but we'd like to structure it as a 3-year contract with an option to renew rather than 5 years. This gives both parties more flexibility." I pretended to consider it, though Vincent and I had already anticipated this counteroffer. "I'll accept 3 years," I said. "But with 2 conditions. First, the renewal option must be at my discretion, not automatic. Second, I retain the right to license StreamCore to other companies. You'll have non-exclusive use." Kenneth looked pained. "Non-exclusive? But StreamCore is central to our competitive advantage." "It's that or nothing," I said simply. More silent looks between them. More calculations of how much they stood to lose. Finally, Harold nodded. "We accept your terms." Derek looked like he wanted to explode, but he stayed quiet. The legal team pulled out their own contracts to review mine in detail. We spent the next 2 hours going through every clause, every term, every condition. When everything was finalized, they asked me to step out while they had one final internal discussion. This was it. The moment of truth. I was called back into the conference room one last time. The executives sat around the table looking exhausted and defeated. Kenneth spoke, his voice lacking its earlier confidence. "Miss Price, we're prepared to sign your contract. But I have to be honest. This feels like you're punishing us. These terms are going to strain our company significantly." I looked around the table, meeting each person's eyes. "You want honesty? Fine. When you fired me without warning after 5 years of loyal service, you didn't think twice about straining my life. You didn't care that I had rent to pay, bills to cover, a career suddenly destroyed. You threw me away like I was nothing. My voice was steady but hard. I built StreamCore because I loved solving problems. I gave it to you because I believed in loyalty and teamwork. You took my work, profited from it, and then discarded me when you decided I was disposable. I leaned forward. So yes, these terms are painful for you. But they're fair. They reflect the actual value of what I created. And they ensure I'll never be undervalued again. Derek finally spoke, his voice bitter. You're really going to hold this over us? I'm not holding anything, I said. I'm running a business. Just like you. The difference is, I actually respect the people who make my business possible. Harold cleared his throat. Let's sign the contracts. They did. One by one, the executives signed the licensing agreement. When Derek added his signature, his hand shook slightly. I watched with satisfaction. When it was finally done, I stood and gathered my things. You'll receive your first invoice next week. Updates and support will begin immediately upon payment. I walked toward the door, then stopped and turned back. One more thing. Thank you for firing me. It was the best thing you ever did for my career. The reaction inside DataCore after the contract signing was apparently explosive. I heard about it through Hannah, my former coworker who had stayed in touch. She called me the next day, barely able to contain her excitement. Lauren, the entire office is talking about what happened. Derek is furious. He went on a rant in the team meeting about how you betrayed the company. I laughed. Betrayed them? That's rich. It gets better, Hannah continued. The board is apparently investigating how this happened. How you ended up owning software that's critical to their operations. They're asking who approved the original agreement, who knew about the ownership structure. What are they finding? That nobody asked the right questions. You created StreamCore independently, told Derek it could help the company, and he just implemented it without ever checking if DataCore actually owned it. Everyone assumed it belonged to the company because you were an employee. But you were smart enough to protect yourself. She paused. Lauren, people here are saying you're a genius. Even the ones who are upset at the licensing fees. They're saying Derek screwed up massively by firing you. I felt a warm glow of vindication. What's happening with Derek? He's being sidelined. The board is blaming him for the crisis. They're saying his management decisions led to this mess. I wouldn't be surprised if he's pushed out soon. After hanging up, I sat in my office feeling strange. I should have been happy about Derek's downfall. And I was partly. But mostly I just felt tired. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about moving forward. DataCore's first payment arrived right on schedule. It was wired directly to my business account, and when I saw the amount, I had to check it 3 times to make sure it was real. In one payment, they had given me more than I had earned in an entire year as their employee. I immediately sent them the first major system update I had been holding back. StreamCore 2.0 included security patches, performance optimizations, and new features I had developed over the past year. Within days, DataCore's system performance improved dramatically. Their outage rates dropped to nearly 0. Processing speeds increased by 40%. Client complaints decreased. The improvement was so noticeable that industry publications ran follow-up articles with headlines like DataCore System Stages Dramatic Recovery and Technical Turnaround at DataCore Impresses Analysts. I read one article that quoted Harold, their CFO, saying, "We've invested in critical infrastructure improvements that are already showing significant results." He didn't mention that those improvements meant paying me a fortune to keep using my software. But I didn't care. The money was in my account. My company was thriving. And DataCore was now permanently dependent on me. Every year they would have to pay me. Every update, every improvement, every innovation I added to StreamCore would be mine to license or withhold. I had gone from being their disposable employee to their most essential vendor. Power dynamic had completely flipped, and there was nothing they could do about it. The success of the DataCore licensing deal transformed Price Solutions overnight. Word spread through the industry fast. Lauren Price, the developer who licensed her own software back to her former employer for millions. Suddenly, everyone wanted to work with me. Companies that had ignored my cold calls a year ago were now reaching out. We heard about your innovative approach, software development and licensing. We'd love to discuss potential projects. Other developers reached out asking for advice. How did you protect your intellectual property? How did you structure your licensing agreements? I started getting invited to speak at conferences, to write articles for industry publications, to mentor young developers. I hired more staff to keep up with demand. Price Solutions grew from my small team of 4 to a company of 12 employees. We moved into a larger office space. I brought on a business manager so I could focus on the technical work I loved. But I made sure to build the kind of company I had wished DataCore had been. Fair compensation. Credit given where credit was due. Respect for everyone's contributions. A work-life balance that didn't demand people sacrifice their lives for the company. My team was loyal not because they were afraid of me, but because they believed in what we were building. We weren't just another tech company. We were proving you could be successful and ethical at the same time. I wasn't just making money. I was making a difference. And that meant everything. 2 years after being fired from DataCore, I sat in my corner office looking out at the city skyline. It was early evening and the sun was setting, painting everything in shades of gold and pink. My phone buzzed with a text from Hannah. Just saw Derek's resignation announcement. He's officially out. The board cited strategic differences. I smiled. Strategic differences. Corporate speak for you messed up so badly we have to let you go. It was a bitter kind of justice, but justice nonetheless. I thought about how far I had come since that terrible Tuesday morning when I received the termination email. I had been so broken, so lost, so sure that I was worthless. DataCore had tried to throw me away like trash. But they didn't realize what they were actually throwing away. They didn't understand that my value wasn't in being their employee. It was in what I could create, what I knew, what I brought to the world. And they definitely didn't realize that the software keeping their entire company.